Fatu's win shocks WWE RAW backstage. Roman Reigns reacts in silence. Pearce struggles to control chaos. Backstage whispers grow louder. WWE power shift begins. What happens when the man who's been treated like the future of destruction finally stops looking like potential and starts looking like a problem nobody backstage can control? And more importantly, when Roman Reigns starts hearing whispers he can't silence, does he handle it like the tribal chief we know, or does that calm start to crack? And what do you think happens when Adam Pearce, the guy who usually tries to keep order in WWE, starts looking less like a decision maker and more like someone just trying to survive what's coming next? Because that's exactly where this whole situation starts getting interesting. It didn't start with fireworks. It didn't start with some big dramatic announcement or Roman Reigns standing in the ring pointing at the sky like he owns the entire universe again. Nah. It started quietly. Too quietly. The kind of quiet that actually feels louder the longer you think about it. Backstage on WWE RAW, things were already tense before anything even happened. You know that feeling when everyone's walking around like they're waiting for something to explode but nobody wants to be the first one to say it out loud? That was the atmosphere. Producers whispering. Talent pacing. Someone arguing near a production crate about timing, but nobody really caring what the argument was about. And then Jacob Fatu steps into tribal combat. Now, let's be real for a second. There's a difference between being hyped and being feared. A lot of guys get hyped. Social media loves hype. Fans love hype. But fear? That's a different currency in WWE. That's the kind of thing you don't announce. You feel it. And Jacob Fatu, he's been slowly collecting that currency without even saying much. So when Tribal Combat hit, it wasn't just another match. It felt like something that was going to leave a mark on more than just the win-loss record. It felt like something that would echo backstage, in meetings, in phone calls nobody admits to having. And then it happened. Fatu wins. Clean. Heavy. Brutal. No confusion. No debate. Just that moment where everything stops for half a second and you realize, oh, this guy is not just dangerous. He's inevitable. Now cut backstage. Because that's where things get messy. Roman Reigns isn't out there smiling or reacting dramatically in the ring. No, this is the part people don't always see. The backstage Roman Reigns. The version that doesn't need cameras to perform, because everything he does already feels like strategy. Except this time, there's a shift. Not panic like someone losing their mind. Not chaos. But that controlled silence that usually shows up when something doesn't fit the plan. And Adam Pearce? He's doing that thing he always does when WWE starts moving faster than the paperwork. Walking. Stopping. Listening to conversations he's not officially part of but clearly needs to hear. You can almost picture him thinking, I didn't sign up for this level of problem today. Somewhere in the background, someone mentions Fatu's performance. Not loudly. Not officially. Just one of those low voices that travels faster than anything on TV. And that's all it takes. Because once the name Jacob Fatu starts floating around backstage after a performance like that, everything else starts shifting around it. Now here's where it gets interesting. Roman Reigns is not someone who reacts publicly without reason. He doesn't just panic like some rookie. But the idea of panic backstage? That's not about shouting or running around. It's subtler. It's the tightening of conversations. The sudden revisiting of match plans. The we might need to reassess something energy. And Pearce? He's stuck between two worlds. One where he has to maintain order like nothing is happening, and another where he's clearly aware that something just changed the hierarchy a little bit. Because Jacob Fatu didn't just win. He announced himself without saying a word. And that's what makes people nervous. You ever notice how in wrestling, it's not always the champion who causes the most tension? Sometimes it's the guy who looks like he doesn't need permission from the system to become the next problem. That's Fatu right now. Backstage chatter starts picking up. Not loud. Not chaotic. Just consistent. Like a background noise that slowly turns into something you can't ignore anymore. Someone says, "That wasn't just a win." Someone else responds, "Yeah, that looked like a statement." And then the real silence hits. Because statements are dangerous in WWE. Statements mean intention. And intention means plans. And plans, well, plans change everything. Roman Reigns hears enough of it. Not everything. He doesn't need everything. That's the thing about him. He hears enough to understand the direction of the wind. And right now, the wind is pointing toward Jacob Fatu. You can almost imagine the moment in a hallway. Not cinematic in the traditional sense. No dramatic lighting. Just fluorescent backstage lights buzzing slightly too loud. Someone walking past trying to avoid eye contact. A production assistant pretending not to listen. And Roman just standing there, processing. Not angry. Not smiling. Just aware. That's usually worse. Adam Pearce, meanwhile, is in full "how do we keep this from becoming a weekly headache" mode. Because he understands something a lot of people don't. When a new force rises in WWE, it doesn't just affect matches. It affects scheduling. It affects storylines. It affects locker room morale. It affects everything down to who gets talked about in production meetings. And Fatu? He just flipped a table nobody was fully prepared to flip yet. One of the backstage producers reportedly tries to downplay it. Something like, "It's just one match." But you can tell nobody believes that. Because just one match is how every major shift in wrestling history starts. It's always just one moment until suddenly it's the only moment people are talking about. And here's the funny part. Somewhere in all this tension, you've still got wrestlers trying to eat catering like nothing is happening. Someone's joking near the coffee machine. Someone else is talking about travel schedules. Life backstage doesn't stop just because the hierarchy might be changing in real time. But the energy? That's different now. It's like when a storm hasn't hit yet, but the air already feels heavier. Roman Reigns' name keeps coming up in conversations, not because he's doing anything wrong, but because everything still revolves around him. That's what happens when you sit at the top for so long. Every new threat is measured against your shadow. And Jacob Fatu? He doesn't even need to call himself a threat. Everyone else is doing it for him. Now, let's be honest here, fans online are already going crazy. Some are saying this is the beginning of a new era. Others are saying it's too early to hype it. And then there's always that one guy in the comments like, "Roman still wins bro," face with tears of joy as if WWE listens to his prediction. But backstage, it's not about fan debates. It's about perception. And perception right now is shifting fast. Adam Pearce is likely having conversations that sound boring on the surface but are actually very loaded underneath. Things like future planning, match protection, and narrative direction. Basically code for, we didn't expect this level of impact this quickly. And Roman Reigns, well, he doesn't need to say much. That's what makes it worse for everyone else. When he's quiet, people fill in the blanks themselves. And those blanks usually aren't comforting. There's also something else nobody is saying out loud yet, but it's hanging there. If Jacob Fatu keeps this momentum, he stops being a rising name and starts becoming a structural problem in the entire tribal landscape. And that's when things get really interesting. Because now it's not just about wins. It's about positioning. It's about control. It's about who WWE starts building around when the dust settles. And you can already feel it building towards something bigger. Like this wasn't just a match, it was a test run for a future nobody wants to fully admit is coming yet. Roman Reigns versus Jacob Fatu isn't even official in anyone's mouth right now. But it's already being spoken in every other way that matters. Backstage.